I must not keep almost killing my players. I must not almost keep killing my Oh, hello. Yes. Oh, yeah. Almost killed another player again in this session. Hello and welcome to the Battling Barrow and another D&D session recap video. This is the second part of the Night's Dark Terror session, and I managed to do something that I've been wanting to do as a GM for ages. Advice from Professor Dungeon Master of Dungeon Craft and Sly Flourishes Lazy Dungeon Master, and that is start a session with combat, and that is what we're doing here. We ended last session with the players rushing towards the Sukiskin homestead, which they see on fire, and that is where we pick up in this game. As the players approach the homestead, they can see it's palisaded with a gatehouse, and there is a big main building with a tower and a few outbuildings, and one of the outbuildings, the barn, is on fire. I roll for surprise, unbeknownst to the players, and they do get surprised. In the first round of combat, they're surprised by goblins. The whole place is being sieged by goblins. 3 different tribes of goblins, all really eager to get inside for some reason. And they're surprised by the Wolf Rider goblins, who are known as the Wolf Skulls or the Kloslok in their own language. There is also the Red Blade or Gnashka, and there are also a group called the Viper Goblins, and for the life of me, top of my head, I can't remember what they are called in their own language. But the Vipers have done a runner already with the homestead's horses, leaving the other 2 tribes to battle it out through the night. The players are waylaid by a group of spear-throwing wolf skulls. There's 8 of them, and in the first round of combat they just throw their spears at the players. 4 find the target, 4 miss. Minor damage is done to the players. And now standard combat ensues. We all roll for initiative and it's great fun. There is a critical roll, and we using Seth Skorkowski's crit and fumble table. And so what we did here, the ranger got it, and the fumble, it was a crit, and the goblin had to roll on the fumble table, and the fumble he got was he was knocked back 10 foot. So what we did was, for this, is we decided that he was the force arrow pinned him to the tree. We exaggerated, we put him in the tree, and it's obviously exaggerated here for the picture. We didn't go that high. I'm using Becmi, even though we are playing 5e, I am incorporating bits from different rule sets, and we are playing using Becmi's morale system. And so at the end, the goblins hold their morale until the last one, and he runs off. They do try to take him out and don't do it. So with that, they make their way to the bridge that leads to the gatehouse, and as they begin to move, they hear a fuming voice from within inside the homestead scream, "Look out!" And as they cross the bridge, charging up the river, are loads of goblins riding wargs. This is, if they don't hurry up, they're going to be cut off from the homestead. The players waste no time in entering the homestead, where they are greeted by 2 humans. These are a male and female. The female is called Elfana, and the man is called Taras. They run towards the homestead, but the players, they stop and look behind him and notice crawling over by the burning barn and the palisade are a group of goblins. These are the Red Blade goblins rather than the wolf skulls. They look slightly different. As they climb over, arrows start flying out from the house itself and take out some goblins, but the rest charge forward, and another battle breaks out. The human occupiers, the 2 people we've mentioned, come back to fight as well. Alfana stays near the door, but Taras comes through and lends a hand with his bow. And Again, there is another crit rolled, which pushes the enemy back in the distance. That the I think the Witchy Poo gets that, and so we placed a goblin on the palisade just to show that in a grisly manner. After this, there is another lull in combat, and this time they rush to the door, taking their pony with them. They squeeze him through the door into the kitchen, and they sort of cleverly use him to block up that door, which I thought was very, very clever. And then they're inside, and they meet the inhabitants of the house. The whole family, or most of them, are in the main hall, including their servant. The grandma and the Peter's daughter are not here, they're in the tower. And Peter explains the situation, that there are currently 2 clans attacking, and the third clan, the Vipers, Jagadash, I've just looked it up, have run off with the horses. 2 of their clan have been killed. The barn and the gatehouse and now that northern stretch palisade are on fire, but the rest of the main building and the stables are intact. Watching them fight, he reckons with their help they can hold out until daylight, because goblins are renowned to hate daylight, so once they make it to daylight they'll be safe. He warns them there are so many goblins in the outlying lands it would be suicidal to try and leave the homestead, and this is only one of several goblin attacks on homesteads that he's heard about in recent weeks. So with that, they begin to shore up the property as much as possible. The ranger looks for weapons, and Peter tells him there is an armory in the tower, 2nd floor of the tower. The 1st floor, ground floor, is the store, which he finds 1 elven boot there, which matches Witchy Poo's. He recognises it. Doesn't take it, but there is 1 elven boot there. There are plenty of arrows, so they're not going to run out of arrows, and so forth. And with that, what happens now is this is why we like strict timekeeping in the older games, and this is where it happens. There are different events that will happen throughout the night. The first is, or what is constantly going on as they enter the house, is the drums and chanting coming from the goblins. Throughout the night at various times, this will ominously just fall silent and then start up again. Occasionally there will be snipers that will try and shoot the windows with slings and arrows, and about 3 hours to midnight the drums and chanting stop. The players are used to this so far, but this time there is a difference. This is a mounted attack from 2 different groups. From the gates, there are 10 Wolf Skull goblins and 2 bodyguards that are mounted on wargs, break through the gate and rush towards the back door and start bashing that in with axes. While this is going on, a group of goblins rush through and take place in the now burnt out barn and start laying down covering fire with ranged weapons, and the ranger himself rushes up to the top of the tower to get a better shot. During his way, he walks into one room, and it is occupied by the Nan and one of the Peter's daughters. She's quite good at range, so he sort of says, "We're under siege, we need all the help we can get." Even though it's a private chamber and is not meant to be there, they understand this situation. She, the youngest occupant, helps the ranger out, and there is a lot of range combat going on. The goblins in the barn are well protected. The goblins out in the open door, not so much, but the door has 30 hit points, and they begin attacking it with axes. So it is now a race to take these out before the door gets taken out, and they succeed in doing it, and then the goblins in the barn lose heart a bit and try to escape, most of them getting taken out. It is now around midnight. They hear a scream coming from the eastern side of the woods. They will rush to the window to see what made the scream, and they can see a lady in a yellow dress. Dara, Peter's wife, gets upset and says her friend Katrina is well known from wearing a yellow dress. She's from the Kirkus homestead to the north, and they've got to go and rescue her, but the players sense something isn't right and hold back and just wait. And what this is, they don't know this, but what this was a hobgoblin wearing a human yellow dress, and it was an ambush. They hold out, the drums start and stop throughout the night. It is now 2 hours after midnight. The ranger is on top of the tower on lookout. He fails a perception check, and even though he's on lookout, I guess he must be getting sleepy and tired from all the combat. He fails to notice 5 giant bats that fly out into the open and rush into him. He has a surprise round of combat, and they do massive amounts of damage. In fact, they knock him down to 3 hit points. And also what he has to do is make a saving throw against Constitution or be made unconscious, and he fails. So now he is unconscious on the tower top. The bats fly off and begin squeezing in through, or smashing in through, some windows. One of the bats has a sort of accident and flies straight through the window past Taros and knocks itself out on the back door. The others smash into the upper windows of the main hall, and so now there is combat going on inside the house. It is all hands to the pump. At this point, more goblins try and rush the door and try and smash it in. After a bit of combat, the players defeat the bats, and the Nan, the grandmother, is a cleric and revives the ranger back to health, and the daughter as well is a trainee cleric, and so between them, any wounds that have been taken are healed. We are not long before dawn, and it looks like they are going to hold out throughout the night. At this point, the wolf skull goblins give up the attack in disgust, and they leave to try and catch up with the viper goblins, and they're going to sort of try and capture the horses for themselves and try and make some profit from this endeavour. The remaining tribe of goblins, the red blade goblins, make an all-out ditch attempt. From the east, they all charge, a whole horde of them. I think there was at the start of this 43, and ones that have been taken out so far, there were 33 left. And from the north clearing, the leader of this tribe and his bodyguards rush out and attack the door, seeing it on its sort of taking damage from the previous assaults upon it. And so there is an all-out. It's looking bad at this point, shall we say. They can try and hold out and kill all the goblins, but that is happening. There are NPCs that are trying to help him out, the family, and the ranger himself is firing arrows at the oncoming horde. Witchy Poo, I think it's the dragon, her fairy dragon, has the spell Suggestion. I think that's what it's called, where you can put a suggestion into the mind of someone who nearby, and that's what they cast. And what I do here is I ask them to explain how this suggestion would work. I mean, you could just do it with dice and just roll dice and yada yada, but I want to hear it and, you know, make the players think about things. And they come out with a suggestion that where the horde isn't quite with the bodyguard, they sort of make it so that the goblin leader gets into the house, suggests that he's searched it and hasn't found what they're looking for, because they've deduced the goblins were raiding the homesteads looking for something. And so they put that suggestion into his mind, and it pays off because of the way they described it. Their plan, I thought, was beautiful. Gave them a bit of an advantage on the roll. They take the roll to cast a spell, it passes, and so with that, the goblin leader comes out, says to his bodyguards that it's not here. They look a bit confused. They rush to the horde and just say, there's no point, we're moving on, daylight's coming, we need to get back to our cave, our lair. And so I thought that was a brilliant solution. Not every solution needs to be combat, and I really like that. That's thinking outside the box. But now it's the day after a little rest and a heal up. It is the day after, and they survey the surrounding area. They can see there are a lot of all the horses are missing. They can see the wolf skulls have gone. They can't see where the viper goblins have gone. There's just too many tracks, but the wolf skulls, they can follow a path. So with that, Taras wants to go after the goblins and get the horses back. Peter's a bit unsure, but Taras convinces him that it's a good idea. So Peter asks the players if they'd go with Taras because they seem like they can handle themselves. He'll say he'll reward them for 20 horses recovered. I think there were 31 horses that should be there. So they also suggest that they take some of the horses they got left, their personal horses that weren't in the pens that the goblins nicked from, but they're locked in their stables. So they should be able to catch up with the goblins, and that's what the players agree to. It's not too difficult to track the horses. The path, with the ranger and his rangery skills, he can track them easily. So they follow the path, and they come across a scene of a battle between two groups of goblins. These are the vipers and the wolf skulls, and they can see the remains of mostly vipers, because they can tell that by the tattoo on their face and the fact that they're not wearing wolf cloaks, which the wolf skulls do. And as they're examining the scene of a battle, eating one of the corpses are 4 giant beetles, which then decide that they want fresher meat and decide to attack the players. And a minor battle takes place. Nothing too seriously, obviously. During this battle, a female viper goblin is left alive, and she tries to make a break for it, but the players easily catch up with her and ask her questions. One, they ask her where her lair is. Their lair is the viper lair, so they get a rough location, sort of southwestish from where they are, where the wolf skull is, and they get a rough description. It's east from their lair, so they got some ground now. Some layout of what's what. Now it comes to the nasty question of what do you do with the goblin? Do you kill or do you let go? Normally the ranger is just a bit bloodthirsty and would kill her, but he knocks her out, and I think that's quite, it takes pity on a goblin. Now again, in this world, goblins have no redeeming features. They are evil, just as orcs are evil. All the human goblinoid races and humanoid races are evil in this. But I thought it was quite nice, so I gave him an inspiration dice. They also learn that out of all the horses, there are only 24 remaining. They continue following the trail, where they come across a bandit camp, and they can see the horses thereafter. The bandit is led by Fire Drill, a female elf, and 4 bandits. They have a chat rather than combat, and they find that she has just bought the horses off a group of goblins. So goblins have made money and they can escape to their lair. She's happy, she's got some horses that she can trade. What's happened is there is some, even though they're tracking a load, that only 24 are remaining. And they try and barter. They sort of say they'll buy them off them. She'll say she'll buy them off them for how much she paid for them. She said she paid 50 gold pieces for them. This is in fact a lie. She's bluffing the players. She actually only paid 15 gold for them each. A bit of bartering goes on. The players tell them they've been offered 20 gold. And what they decide is that it's better to cut their losses and get the horses back, because they've still got a job that they can then trade the horses at Rifley, and how this all started out. So better to cut their losses, pay her the 20 gold rather than having a massive fight at this stage. They're all a bit worn down from the siege and the encounter with the beetles, and so they decide to just pay her the 20, cut the losses, take the horses back, and that's what happens. When they get to the pen, whilst they're expecting 24 horses that are survived, they see there are an extra 10, 8 riding horses and 2 war horses, which the wolf skulls or the vipers must have picked up from somewhere. And so, in reality, they are quids up. They've paid 20 gold, but they've got more horses than what they were expecting, so they're quite happy, and they return back to the homestead. On the return, they see that Gregor and 3 other men from the lumber camp at Ilyakina to the north have arrived, bearing news of a goblin attack there the night before the attack on Sukiskin homestead. The attacks were from the Wolfskull and Redblade clans. They attacked at dusk, setting fire to the palisade and overrunning the camp. Gregor and his companions escaped, but they say Captain Kalanus managed to hide. But everyone else, including Peter's brother Stephen, who was at the camp, have been taken prisoner. That night there is a feast to celebrate the fact they got the horses back. But it's a bit muted because obviously Peter's brother Stephen has been taken kidnapped. It's here during this feast I wanted to introduce something that was in Dungeon magazine, and this is going to be the game of choice throughout my game world, and this is Spottle. So if you've ever played the Witcher 3 video game with its game of Gwent, that's what this is. This is a dice game that is played throughout the realm. It first appeared in as I said, an issue of Dungeon magazine, and so what I've done is I wrote down the rules, and we decided to have a game of that for just a practice game. Just as a feast, there's going to be gaming and some sort of levity going on, even though it's a bit of a muted feast. And so we play a few games of Spottle to get the rules down pat. I've typed these up. I'll put them on for my patrons so you can download them for yourselves if you want to include them in the game. It's a great fun game, actually, a little side diversion if your players need to earn money and you're not averse to gambling, or fake gambling in this case, then yeah, you can use that. It's a great thing. I'm going to be using it a bit more in the game, so I thought now was a nice time to introduce the concept and the basic rules to the players. During the night, Peter looks sad and he addresses the players and asks them, will he try and track down his missing brother? He offers a half share in the proceeds of selling all the horses. In return for freeing Stephen, he will supply provisions from the stores and any non-magical equipment, so arrows are not going to be a problem, but the ranger can stock up arrows. He will the players I should say kept 2 of the war horses during the trade-off with the bandits, so they kept 2 of those. So they got 2 horses, so they got horses now to make it easier and quicker to do the search. And the players accept, and what they decide to do is go and investigate the other homestead nearby, the ones that have been burnt down for a start, and the other surrounding ones to see what's what, and that is where we leave it. And our next game will be normally we play on Sundays, but this game will be Monday because it's a bank holiday here in England. And where we live, we've got something called Sweeps Festival, so we are going to be attending that on the Saturday and Sunday rather than the Monday. So we'll be playing on the Monday, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good one. But that is it for this one. Until the next one, guys, stay safe and take care.